There's a lot to be concerned about right now because of many who are on the road and because of our sister Megan Andrus in the hospital in Colorado. That's always a concern. Megan had some struggle here a while back with Bell's palsy, and I don't know what's happening now, but she has 101 degrees of fever, and we're concerned about her, and we definitely want to keep her in our prayers. We have a lot of reason for excitement too, though. David Powell was telling me that that we've had 45 bags of groceries given, some more in the foyer. The pantry is restocked now and doing well. 12 families came yesterday to pick up clothing. Such a tremendous ministry. I see what Brother Paul Sneed is doing with the visuals that we're having on the screen, and all that is tremendous. We've just got great things going on all around us, and we want to get involved with it. Find a place to get involved. You know, the way we have done things in the past has not always been the way things are taking place now. How many of you remember a time when a question would be asked? How many in the audience are daily readers this week? And hands would go up, daily reader, and hands can go up to say, I remember. You remember that? Okay, that's permissible. Raising hands is okay for doing that. But I can remember those days, and a lot of times I could see people sitting around with questions about, I wonder if they really did. Well, there was a preacher this one time decided he was going to put things to a little bit different test. He said, next week, giving you a heads up, I'm going to be preaching about lying, and to prepare you for that lesson, I want everybody to read Mark chapter 17 at least one time. So next Sunday arrived, and he got up and asked his question. How many read Mark 17 this week? Hands went up all over the audience. He said, folks, there are only 16 chapters in the book of Mark. This brings me directly to my subject of lying. But it was kind of a shocker to get into the lesson in that way. But you see, we all want to look good, don't we? We all want to look good because there's something within us that the devil knows how to tag it. He knows how to rub that little spot, because we all like to look good and to have people elevate us and not, of course, condemn us. Jesus addressed that many times, but I want you to read 1 John 2:16 to see one of Jesus' apostles' words about it. He said, for everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the lust of his eyes, the boasting of what he has and does, comes not from the Father, but from the world. That's the NIV. I want you to see how the Message words it. Practically everything that goes on in the world, wanting your own way, wanting everything for yourself, wanting to appear important, has nothing to do with the Father. It just isolates you from Him. Satan knows that, because Satan, according to Scripture that you can read in Ezekiel 28, also in 1 Timothy 3, elders are told not to be a novice, not to be a beginner, lest they fall into the trap of Satan because of pride. 2 Peter 2:4 talks about angels that fell. Jude verse 6 talks about angels that fell. And back to Ezekiel 28. When you read Ezekiel 28 and realize Satan fell because of pride, thought he was as big as God because he was made in a beautiful way. Oh, sometimes how we get that way as well. Satan knows where to rub to get us to bite and to go after the glory and to get the praise of men rather than the praise of God. What does God want? Psalm 51:17, David said, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit. A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. Once again, let's turn to the Message. I learned God worship when my pride was shattered. heart-shattered lives are ready for love, don't for a moment escape God's notice. God knows when we are humble. God knows when we are contrite. God also knows when we're puffed up with pride, when we become haughty, when we're so taken up by ourselves and sold on ourselves that we miss what it is all about. Jesus is going to deal with that by talking about 3 godly acts when we turn to the 6th chapter of Matthew. We've been taking a journey through the lessons of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, learning what Jesus wants from us as his kind of people. And over the theme will be spun out, but no more powerfully than the Scripture does it today. And I want that Scripture to speak so loudly for us. It's good for people to give to other causes, to give to other people and sacrifice. That's good. It's good to pray. Who would say it's bad to pray to God? Well, an atheist might, but prayer is a good thing. And fasting, something that we've kind of gotten away from, but fasting is something that can also be done as an act of worship to God. These are good things, but Jesus said they can be done in ungodly ways. Let's see how he spoke. Matthew 6, verse 1 through 4. Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men, to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by men. Jesus used humor many, many times, and can't you see this humorous situation? I don't know that they actually had a trumpet, some trumpeter coming along behind them. Okay, people are around here, Mr. Trumpeter, sound the trumpet so they can see me give to this beggar here. But Jesus used it as a touch of humor to say, don't do this. This is not a good way to give. I tell you the truth, they've received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Now, I had that set up for next Lord's Day, but Wilsey and I are going to be at a family reunion for Wilsey, so I wanted to bump this one up because I didn't want to skip this message. This one is too powerful. Too many red letters to bypass it all. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Keep your left hand ignorant. And how do we do that? We need to do it so that our giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. What we have seen already is that pride is the source of all ungodliness. And I think all of us can go to the bank on that and understand it. That pride is the source of so many things that we do that are not thought out, that do not come from our heart. They come from something that the devil is wanting us to do. But now note 3 points that follow. 1, God knows all. Anybody in here doubt that? The omniscience of God. God knows motives. When I see somebody give, I don't know why they're giving. That is not up to me to judge. Wrong, in fact, if I am doing it. That is up to you to judge yourself, me to judge myself. But we'd better do it. We'd better examine, why am I doing what I am doing? It isn't the amount. Jesus tells a parable about a widow that gave 2 mites, virtually nothing, and in so doing gave more than people who were giving from what the King James calls superfluity, their abundance, overabundance. They were giving from what they had, but I had a whole lot left over. The widow gave everything she had. And he said she gave more. It isn't the amount. Paul in 1 Corinthians 13 said you can give it all and it won't do you a bit of good if it is not done out of love. Well, how can I give so much and it be for the wrong purpose? To be seen of men. And yet, God knows all. God knows why I give. He knows if I give. He knows how much. My left hand may be ignorant, but God's knowledge is not. God knows what I give. Now, if once we understand this, it's going to flow to our other 2 points in the lesson as well, and that will be prayer and fasting that definitely go together or did in old times. But here we're learning about what giving is all about. Now then, let's look at another point. I worded this one, what yanks your chain? What motivates you to do what you do? You see, people that are running different organizations have learned the strokes as well. Anybody attend a college that the college sends you these letters about donating to them? And if you donate so much, you get in this list. If you donate so much more, you get in the bigger list with the bigger fonts, neon lights. But if you give this, your name will be included. If you give lower than that, thank you very much. And they put out a magazine listing the people who gave in certain amounts. Okay, it's up to me to go through there and see who gave big and judge them because they did that to get there. They maybe didn't do that to get their name in print. Getting your name in print, even getting your name on a college dorm or a college building, that doesn't mean anything about you. You may have not done that for that reason at all. God knows. But why did you do it? If I do it so that men will recognize me, there's something wrong with what my giving is doing. God knows all. What yanks your chain? And where do you get your reward? Here? Or do you get it there? Now, here is very temporary. Jesus said, if what they wanted was the praise of men when they blew the trumpet, ta-da, ta-da, everybody watch. They wanted people to turn and look and say, oh, look at him give to the poor beggar there. They got their reward. That's it. Nothing else is going to happen because God knows what is going on, and He will reward you eternally is the message. I'm reminded of a barbershop scene one time where this barber saw a little boy coming down the street, and he told the people in the barbershop, he said, hey, everybody watch. He said, this little kid's going to come in here. He said, this is the dumbest kid in the whole world. He said, just watch what happens and we'll talk when the kid leaves. Little boy walked in, and the barber pulled out a dollar bill and 2 quarters. He said, Sonny, he said, I have a dollar bill here and I've got 2 quarters. Which do you want? 2 quarters, $1 bill. Because I want the 2 quarters. And he took the 2 quarters and left. And the barber just had the best laugh over that. He said, what did I tell you? He said, that kid cannot get it in his head that that dollar is worth twice as much as the 2 quarters. And he just can't get it. Dumbest kid you ever saw. One of the men left the barber shop and saw the kid coming down the street with some candy. And he said, kid, come over here a minute. He said, don't you understand that a dollar is twice as much as 2 quarters? The kid said, oh yeah, I understand. He said, well, why do you do that then? He said, mister, he said, if I take the dollar, the game's over. Anybody want to identify who the dummy was? There was a barber there giving up a whole lot of quarters. That was eternal. Kid could get it any time he wanted it. He could get it any time. Take the dollar, it's over. And I see this being a parallel in a funny sort of way. And that is that we take the little pat on the back, the name on the sign. We take the strokes that people give us, and we're so happy with it because we look good. God says, I've got something eternal. That's cotton candy. That's the dollar for the 1 trip. But that isn't the 2 quarters forever. That isn't something that will go on and on. But Jesus goes on now to tell us in Matthew 6, 5 and 8. He says there's another act that we can go through also that is a very godly act, but we can do it in a very ungodly way. He said, when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by men. I tell you the truth, they've received their reward in full. They got their dollar, that's it. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door. Pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. Therefore, don't ask Him. No, that isn't the point. The point is, don't act like you're somebody when you're not. Don't do it. I've had a trip through this, and confessions of a preacher to you here today. In my childhood, I was grilled so hard on this that you do not pray in public. That was the message that my folks received from it. You do not pray in public because people will see you, and you are not to be seen by men when you're praying. You go in your room, you close the door. Jesus made a real example of that you shut the world out and you go in private always. And I grew up with that concept of we go to a restaurant, we didn't pray in that restaurant. We prayed before we went in, or we didn't pray at all, or prayed after we got out. But never, never, ever would we do that in public, and I went off to college. In college at Abilene Christian, we called it the beanery, the cafeteria. We would go in there, and at times you'd arrive at a point where the prayer was being offered. Bing bong, and everybody would bow, and we would have a prayer come over the intercom. If you didn't arrive there in time, people would come in and sit down, and they would bow in prayer, and I saw that, and I thought, ooh, this is wrong. I mean, here they are. I mean, they weren't praying aloud, but they were making it obvious they were praying. Oh. And I was offended by that at first. And then one day I thought, but I wonder how people are looking at me. I sit here and just wolf it down. I'd better bow too. And so I bowed, and I may have said the Pledge of Allegiance, but I finished whatever I was doing, and I walked out of there, and it hit me a little bit later during the day. You rubber nickel. You did not bow your head and pray for that food any more than a frog is a rattlesnake. I mean, I said, no way. You did that because you were afraid of what people were going to say. And I took a real guilt trip on that, and then a self-examination. Who am I? What is this all about? It was a while before I could finally get down to really praying in honest. At first I went back, okay, I just won't do it. And then I got to thinking, what I'm doing is letting men drive me one way or the other, and the whole point is don't let men cause you to do what you're doing. Do we understand that? Don't let men either cause me to pray or not to pray. Let me do that because I want to do it. I feel I need to do it, and let man not judge me for why I'm doing it. It's here that Christ judges me, not praying in public. It's praying in public to be seen of men, and I'd missed that part of the line. Maybe the teaching was done, but I'd missed it. Then I hit my adult life, and I began preaching pretty early. I've been preaching since I was a senior in high school, filling in for congregations. But going to restaurants, I would let people know, I certainly do not pray in a restaurant. Didn't do that for a long, long time. And I would give them my little exegesis as to why not. Jesus made that so clear that we are to go in our closet even and close the door. Now, he made that point so specific that I cannot miss it. And I stood firm on that. In fact, when my first full-time preaching job was in Midland, Texas, and preachers there at that time, we would even have a preachers meeting. We would have our prayer outside, and then we would go, not where anybody could see us, mind you, and then we would go inside. We would have our meal. And I remember somebody telling a story about that was so funny. So, preachers gathering there, and one of the preachers said, would you mind if I said the prayer for us? And they all said, okay, go ahead. Our Father who art in heaven, hallelujah. And they said, boy, waiters were dropping plates all over the place, and people were bowing all around the restaurant. And he didn't dream it would be anything like, and we all just laughed about that, and that proved the whole folly of it all. And I stood pretty firm on that until, well, several years ago now. In my self-examination, I'm always doing this. I'm not examining everybody else. I try not to. It's examining me, who I am. I realize that there is something to saying a prayer to let kids learn that you say prayer and you're thankful for the things that you receive. And I don't know. I can't give you a date on when I changed. I just know it happened years ago. That I began accepting that when people said, can we pray for our meal here in this restaurant? You bet we can. If you're paying for it, you can do it. No, I didn't take it quite that far, but I decided I would even tell them if you'd like, if they wanted me to lead the prayer, certainly. And I had no problem with it at all because I finally understood, at least I believe I do, life, it's a trip, folks. It's a trip. Are any of you right where you want to be forever? I'm not. I want to keep learning. I want to keep growing. I want to keep examining. And this is one, and I know I'm pouring my heart out to you here because this has been a trip for me, learning this. But when I pray in a restaurant these days, and for several years now, I have no concern whatsoever about who's going to watch me, and are they seeing that I'm praying? Can they hear me to know the words that I'm using? That's not my concern, because I'm not praying to be seen of men. That's not why I am doing it. Jesus did not condemn the Pharisees for praying on a street corner. He did not condemn them for praying in the synagogue. He condemned them for praying to be seen of men. End of subject. God knows in secret. He knows our motives. And I love all of you so much. And if let's say you don't want to pray, that's okay. I've been there too. When was I right? I loved a statement I heard Brother Paul make today. Maybe neither of us are right. Maybe both of us are right. We draw these judgment lines. There's only one person in all this world that I can judge. And he's standing right here before you. To try to judge anybody else deals with motives, and God's the only one that knows those. And that's why we're to stay out of that business and not judge other people for what they do or don't do, or what they believe or don't believe, because it's a trip, it's a journey, and none of us are where we ultimately should be or will be. Jesus continues in Matthew 6:16 through 18. When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show men they are fasting. I tell you the truth, they've received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to men that you're fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. I decided to fast, so I walked before my friend David. Go ahead, ask me what's wrong. Oh, David said I look pretty bad. What's wrong? I'm fasting. Can't you tell? Heard my stomach growl a little bit ago. When I do these things for a show, that is the thing that is wrong. If I want to fast, fast. Now, a fast can be a total not eating of food for a period of time. It could even be a partial fast, not eating a certain kind of food. I've been on a partial fast for years now. I decided not to eat a live frog. And I've been faithful to this pledge to not eat a live frog. But you see, fasting was connected. We've gotten away from that to a large degree. I admire, can I say that? Because people that do it might think, oh, I'm not going to judge that. But I do admire those people that fast for a spiritual reason. It was done of old. I don't know that I can tell you that I've ever really committed myself that deeply to doing what I have seen some people do. And I don't think that I found out because they were wannabes. I do not believe that for a moment, because this is something that is very, very serious. But of old, what fasting was done for was to suffer a little bit, to draw closer to God, so that my prayers would be more fervent, because a sort of asceticism, a defacing of self, a suffering that goes on. Some people took that to real extremes, even to beating self. Some with barbed wire and some with leather with glass embedded in it and beating themselves and bleeding. Fasting was the milder form of that, to draw closer to God and say, I'm suffering and I want to reach to you. But it wasn't done for show. Because if it's done for show, then whatever reward, whatever yanked your chain, yanked it. And that's the reward that you're going to get. And it's all over. God sees in secret and rewards eternally. Men see openly and reward accordingly. There's a difference in those two statements. As we conclude the lesson, I want you to see a prophetic statement that Zephaniah had. Zephaniah 3, 11 and 12. It's a messianic statement, one referring to Jesus and the church. He said, I will remove from the city those who rejoice in their pride. Never again will you be haughty on my holy hill, but I will leave within you the meek and humble who trust in the name of the Lord. Lord, help me to be an humble person and not to do things to receive rewards by men and praise from men. Father, I want whatever you give me, that I don't have a clue what all it will be, but I want to trust in you. This morning, where is your spiritual walk? If there is any way that this congregation can help you with your spiritual walk, whether it's to be baptized into the body of Jesus Christ this day, or whether it is to seek prayers of a congregation. See, sometimes I think we worry about coming forward on how are people going to take it, get rid of it. If you feel the need to do it, then you do it out of a motive that is pure and in a response to God. If you have that kind of a quest today to grow closer to God, won't you do it? Won't you come now as we stand and as we sing?